Back in the garage for another repair video on the truck this time. It was supposed to be an E30 weekend, but we have some more crucial things we need to do on the truck first. I have a few parts laid out. The power steering pump was actually going bad, so I decided to replace it with a full set. This is the BBB New Advantage kit. I don't really know this brand. I'm not too familiar with Mopar truck brands, but I decided to get the pump with the pulley and the reservoir all as one unit. And then I figured, you know, I'm going into the truck I'll have to remove the serpentine belt anyway to get to it, because I don't know the age of the old belt. I decided to get a new serpentine belt with a kit from Gates with the new tensioner and then 2 new idler pulleys. Some of the ATF +4 that the truck requires. I'm not entirely sure how much is in the system, so I have 2 bottles. Hopefully that's enough. If not, I'll just have to run and grab some more. It should be a fairly easy job to do. Doesn't require too many tools or really too much expertise. Should be able to just get into it. We'll pop the belt off, drain the power steering fluid that's in the system, and then go through, get the old pump off, get the new pump on, put on the belt. Should be fairly quick. Can't really show you how the power steering is acting up now. On the garage floor, the wheels move a lot smoother than it would be kind of out on the road or in a parking lot, but it has a lot of kickback in the steering wheel. You can hear a whine, a gurgling whine coming from the pump, and then when you do get to full lock, the wheel will actually kick back a little bit and fight you to get to that far into the turn. So really to start, I'll have to go down. It'll be hard to see from this side. We have the tensioner down in here. Release the tension, we'll pop the belt off to start with. If you're like me and don't have a serpentine belt tool, a 3/8 drive ratchet will fit into the spot, and then I'll get a little breaker bar and then move it to the right, and it should release the tension on the belt. You can see what I mean by right in here is where your 3/8 ratchet will insert. With my little bar on my ratchet on the tensioner, I can pull it to the side. You can see my thumb on this hand is just about able to get that off. Move it a little bit more and the belt should pop off all the way. Okay, so I have it popped off that first pulley, and as I release the tension, I should just be able to fish out the rest of the belt off of all of the other pulleys. So my belt didn't necessarily look bad, but I was kind of in that area. Not bad, just to replace it now. We can have some peace of mind. And because the belt wasn't terribly bad, I can save this just for whatever reason. If on a drive, my new belt does break or fly off or something like that, I'll have this just in case. So I just put a pan underneath because I was popping the lower hose off from where it runs from the pump to kind of the little cooler, just to drain the system out there. So when I remove the pump, I don't have to worry about it spilling uncontrollably. And now with the system empty and the belt off, you can see the pulley. It's the illuminated one with the ribs on it. I'll be able to just turn that and access the 3 bolts that are going to be the top, bottom, and left-hand side of the pulley. That'll release the pump. And then I believe there's one hose that I'll have to connect. And then when I pull the pump out, I'll still have the hose attached to it that we just drained from. So I have off the bottom bolt and the top bolt so far that go into these 2 spots. I use this long breaker bar just to break them loose with a 13mm socket, just because I don't have any longer ratchets than that. So broke it loose with that, with the leverage, and then got the bolts off with the little handheld ratchet. Before I get that last bolt off, which will release the pump, you can see this hose right here. It runs into the power steering rack. It's kind of hard to follow it here, but it runs into the bottom of the pump as well. I'll use a wrench and get it off from where it disappears below the pulley and is into the pump there. We'll leave that line in the truck, and then the pump should be free to come out with the other line still attached that we drained from earlier. Got the old pump, pulley, and reservoir out. Have the new one ready. Need to switch over this line because I'm going to reuse it. And then, so I did spill a little bit more than I expected. It kind of went onto the subframe. And then I caught it into my bucket. I guess just be aware when you get the pump off, there still might be a little bit of fluid in the pump or in the lines right there. So make sure your bucket's ready to catch any of the power steering fluid that's going to drip out. I gotta say, now that I have the old pump off, the backhand side of it that was mounted against was pretty rusty, pretty nasty. So I don't really know how much that really affects things, but good to see clean, fresher parts going into the truck. Now with the power steering pump out and the new one ready to go in, before I get to that, I'm just going to go back through and get the other 2 idler pulleys off that I have new in my Gates serpentine belt kit. So I'll finish getting those on, get the pump back on, tensioner, belt, fluids. I think it's a good plan, and we'll attack the truck little by little just to get all these new parts back on. Switched over these little dust shields and the bolts from the old pulleys and got those in. I tried to hit it with a little bit of a wire brush to get some of the rust off, and it didn't really do too much. These are ready to go back in. The new tensioner, reusing the same bolt from the old tensioner, ready to go back in. Getting close to the final product. Everything is on and torqued except for the new belt. Stretching the belt on now. You can see my diagram if you need to pause it. Hopefully that shows up. I put an R or an S. Basically, if the ribbed part touches the pulley, there's labeled an R. And if it's S, that means the smooth side of the belt is on it. I started at the bottom. So this is where the crankshaft is, basically. Started on that one, went over this smooth one, down over this R. This ribbed one is the new power steering pump pulley that we just put in. And then basically the one that I have undone right now is the AC condenser pulley. So what I'll have to do now, I made sure that everything is nice and secure and in line of all of the pulleys. I'll pull the tensioner, and that'll give me enough room to get this final belt on. Before I release the tension, I just want to make sure that everything is still in the lines of the respective pulleys. So the last one I need to feel for is down at the crankshaft. Kind of recenter that on the idler pulley that we replaced. And it is in line with the crankshaft. So now I feel confident and I can release the tension. And that should be everything put back together. The belt does feel tighter than the old belt. And the tensioner definitely, has more resistance to it, and it's harder to turn than the slightly worn out older one that we replaced. So now I just need to add some fluid. The last thing to do is bleed the power steering, and we should be done for the day. So I think it's time to wrap up this job. Everything's put back together. The belt is back on. The power steering was bled. So I bled it with the truck off and the cap off. So what I did was I just jacked up the front of the truck just a little bit. The wheels were still touching the ground, but then I turned the steering wheel, locked the lock a couple times, checked the fluid. I think it took me 3 tries of adding more fluid till the system was full, and it wasn't, lowering the level as I would turn the wheel. And then once I was happy with that, I did the same process basically, but with the truck on the ground and the engine on to run the belt. It took a little, so this bottle wasn't new, it wasn't full to begin with, and it took a little over a bottle because we have just a bit below where we started on the first bottle. So I don't know how much it actually needs, and I guess it would depend on how much of your power steering fluid drained. But we have it on, the belt's on, no squeaks, no squeals. The pump turns very nice and you don't hear any noises. I wish I had a before clip, but it was a pretty evident noise of what the problem was. No longer hearing that, so we're good there. I'll take it for a drive and then just check for some leaks and then keep an eye on the level over the next week just to make sure everything is okay. But I really don't anticipate any problems coming from this truck anymore, at least for this problem. Yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for tagging along as I tackle this job. It was a pretty quick, easy job. I know from a repair shop or from a dealership, I don't think this would really cost too much. It just seems like a little bit of labor on top of the parts, which would probably be the majority of the price. Just want you to know it's a fairly easy job with some standard tools that everybody should have, and you can do this job at home without a problem.